Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
Hi, I'm Brittany Pacheco,
Tristan Jones.
and we are the few, but the watchers in the basement.
That's right, Brittany. We got three people today. Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We're here today to discuss season 1, episode 5 of House of the Dragon. The episode is titled "We Light the Way," which, by the way, those are the house words of House Hightower. And although the show is about the Targaryens, House Hightower and House Strong had a pretty big episode. We'll get into that in a second. Before we delve deep into the plot and all that happened, and a lot happened in this episode, let's get our
Boy,
overall
did it.
thoughts. Brittany, what were your overall thoughts of this episode?
This show just keeps getting better with every episode, and I think everyone here can agree to that. And now this episode is my favorite episode, like hands down. It's so well done. The way that we're progressing the story and incorporating things that actually don't happen until many years later, but incorporating it into this episode actually works in my opinion. But again, the storytelling is just so well done. The acting is so well done. Big episode for Alicent. And I'm sad to see Emily Carey and Millie Alcock. Like they're gone now. Like this is the
Yeah.
last episode of young Rhaenyra and young Alicent. I'm so sad to see that because their acting was incredible. But overall, amazing episode. Tristan, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I mean, stop me if you've heard this before, but this was. So I said last week was my favorite episode. This is my favorite episode, and I don't even think it's close to the other four before. Like, I'm legitimately excited. I'm like reliving every part of the episode. We talked about last week. We talked about. So I think last week's episode was so good, but last week's episode could also be seen as like in isolation of everything, every other episode. Like we can just talk about like the brothel scenes. We could talk about, the king, the scenes that happen in the throne room, Viserys and Otto. We could talk about Viserys and Rhaenyra. But this episode, better than every other episode we've seen so far this season, sets the table for like the main conflict so well. Like this episode, last night's episode, I think did a great job. Every scene was like moving the story forward like 20, 30 yards, instead of like incrementally. We're starting to see like the battle lines get drawn in the most subtle ways, and some ways not so subtle. Thanks, Sir Criston. But this is like so subtle in the way like the battle lines are being drawn, like the major conflict is being set up. I love that last night episode from start to finish. Like I was literally shaking the last 15 minutes. Once we got to the wedding, because I knew something was about to jump off. I just couldn't remember exactly what was going to happen. So I just sat there like shaking. My body was shaking. My favorite episode by far, the dialogue in every scene was perfection. And I think it moved the story further better than every other episode we've seen so far.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that, I think the one great thing about last night's episode is that in that wedding scene, it all kind of built up to that scene, and all the characters that we saw their scenes before the wedding, they were all in the wedding. They were all there. They were all like in one space, and we got to see kind of a resolution to that part. And the thing about this show is we've had time jumps, and we're about to have another big, probably maybe a decade more time jump coming in episode 6. But so far, even with the time jumps, this show has been so well paced. And Brittany, like you said, last night's episode is most likely the final time we're going to see the young Alicent and the young Rhaenyra actresses. And the way that they ended that episode was like a perfect like cap on those two actresses playing those roles. And it also was like the perfect, like we're not the midway point. We're halfway through the season. Like the pacing of this show, much like the acting and the cinematography, how it looks, the sound, like everything is so well done. I mean, it's like I have a hard time picking my favorite episode. I think I've mentioned this to y'all in our little group chat that I every episode kind of becomes my favorite, or to me, like they're all very They're very close. And that's a good thing. Like, because Game of Thrones, I didn't have. I mean, there were certain moments in the show that I remember that were standout moments, but I just kind of liked every episode until we got to the end. So it's cool that we have that back with this show. And this show, I mean, it's just a fun watch. And like, you know, last night, the NFL's back, and like I could not care less. Like, like I'm watching House of the Dragon before I'm watching the Bears and Packers or whoever's playing on Sunday Night Football. So anyway, what a great episode.
Got to move the football game to the iPad like I did.
Well, I did that last week because it was like Cowboys and Bucks, but this week I knew the Packers were going to crush the Bears. That's not even really a good
whoa. Listen, we're not here to talk about
I know
just football. Okay, no one gives a shit right now. We're here to talk about House of the Dragon. All right.
Yeah, I know.
Let's stay focused. All right.
We're focused. So we're back in. So
plus the Bears suck. Like
they're horrible. Their offense is brutal.
But
yeah, with Game of Thrones, we had a red wedding, right? And then we had a purple wedding, and so now people are calling last night's episode the green wedding. Yeah. And Brittany, would you care to explain to us why it's called the green wedding?
Oh my God, it's so appropriately named. And Tristan, you can probably speak on this more so than I can, even though I'm a few chapters away from finishing Fire and Blood. But with the wedding in the book, it was not that it was glossed over. It had like a sentence or two, and it's like, okay, now we fast forward to bigger things. So the wedding that we saw in this episode was completely created for the show. All the events that occurred completely for the show. The emphasis of the green wedding has a lot to do with House Hightower. Hightower, their colors are green, as you can see with Alicent. By the way, looks stunning in her dress. I mean, if you want to talk about being the queen and being regal, that was the look. That was the vibe. And Alicent was all about it because she, as I said, had a huge episode. Talk about learning about the betrayal, not only of Rhaenyra, but also her husband Viserys, but just the fact that she sided with the Targaryens over her own father, and her father was banished from King's Landing, basically. So for the significance of the color green, as we heard from Larys Strong, who's also known as the Clubfoot, I'm also going to call him Littlefinger 2.0. He made it a point to say to his brother that when the Citadel lights their, or is it Citadel or is it just the tower? I think it was the Citadel, right, Tristan?
It's no, Citadel is a specific place in
that's right, in Old Town, yeah. Okay. But basically,
it's called the High Tower. Literally, it's called the High Tower.
All right, cool. Thank you for clarifying that. But for the High Towers to basically say, when we're at war, we light our tower green. And Alicent was wearing green. All of her family that came to the wedding was wearing green. Like, shit's gonna get real and shit's gonna go down. So also in the book, it describes basically you have the greens and the blacks. The greens are all in, allegiance to Alicent, High Towers, and then the blacks are all in allegiance to the Targaryens. So when I put it out there on Twitter, by the way, if you haven't checked out our Twitter, be sure to do so, because we've got a poll going out there asking, bend the knee to your team green or team black. I'm gonna ask y'all here too, who are you bending the knee to? Because shit's gonna get crazy. Let's be real.
This is an Alicent Hightower stan account, by the way. So a couple things on the High Towers.
This is the last episode we will feature Tristan. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm rolling with the green, so it's a good chance I might win. I'll say, so we like the way is our House Hightowers words, right? So that comes strictly from House Hightower. We like the way. Big Alicent episode. So it's something that hit me a little bit later. Like, it makes sense that this would be like the end of Millie Alcock and Emily Carey's run with the show, because last night's episode was literally like the final death to their childhood, right? If you look at it from Rhaenyra's perspective, she's becoming who she's going to be. when Sir Criston Cole propositions her basically to give up her inheritance, run away with him to Essos and such. Like, she makes a grown up stance. It was just like, hey, we can keep doing how we're doing, but I am the crown. Like, and this is what my life is going to be. I have to accept my responsibility and duties at it as a inheritor of the crown. But she's making grown up decisions, right? They might not always be the best decisions, but she's making decisions based on who Rhaenyra is going to be in the future. Alicent, this is the complete death of her, at least her social ignorance, her social childhood. She, foolishly, blindly backs Rhaenyra in her reputation, not seeing that Rhaenyra is growing up. She is growing up in the situation, in the society that she's grown up, that she's brought up in, and she's taking more risks. She's just doing things outside of being the 17 to 19-year-old girl that Alicent sees her as. And by finding out that she has been running around with Sir Criston Cole, and she blatantly lied to Alicent's face. That's like the final straw to her growing up and becoming the Alicent that she needs to be based on the situation that she's in. So yeah, like we're no longer going to see those child actors because they're no longer the children that they started out the season being. So yeah, big Alicent episode. She's not literally declaring war, but by coming in with that green dress in that particular moment at a wedding, when we see two powerful houses joining, what she's saying to the rest of her family is, I'm still on your, like, I'm doing my duty as Queen Alicent. And yes, I'm still a Targaryen, but I'm still riding with House Hightower, and I still want your support in this. So you start to see Alicent, and I really hope we get to this, but we start to see Alicent also making more allegiances and more alliances. Mm-hmm. At the same time, Rhaenyra is kind of like burning certain alliances that she may need, that she definitely will need in the future. So yeah, it was the death of innocence. This is the perfect midpoint episode of the season because we get to see a complete shift, not just in their personalities, but in like the actual physical representation of these characters. So excellent Alicent episode. I'm Team Green. Sorry.
All right, I gotta do this. I gotta show everyone who's watching. Mel, shout out to Geeking Out with Melly Mel. She texted me earlier. She's like, "Oh my god, what time does your pod start? I have to talk about this episode. This episode was like insane." She's all about Daemon Targaryen. Don't worry, Mel, we're gonna get to that. But Tristan, because you're Team Green, I'm gonna say, come and take it. All right, wearing this shirt, even though it's got a corgi, just ignore it. Come and take it. All right, I'm Team Black through and through.
So I voted for Team Black, but mostly, I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of Damon and the Targaryens right now, but mostly because I'm still unsure of who's all going to be on Team Green. I mean, obviously Sir Criston Cole, it seems like he's going to be a part of Team Green, which kind of begs the question. We're not seeing a new actor for Criston Cole.
No.
So that's going to be interesting with the ones that they stick with and the ones that are leaving. I feel like, I mean, because that actor, he's probably not too much older than the actresses that were playing young Alicent and young Rhaenyra, right?
Fabien, I forgot of his last name, but he's
Frankel, I believe. Yeah, Fabien Frankel.
Frankel, yeah. He's like 26, 27 or something like that. He's not that old.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I wonder,
he's not gonna be replaced by a different actor. The only few characters that we saw actor change is obviously the young queen and princess, and then the Velaryons, Rhaenyra and Lena.
Right. I just wonder if they'll probably age him up. I'm guessing in the next episode because they didn't show. I don't think they showed him in the look ahead at all. They showed a lot of other stuff that we'll get to later, but I don't think they showed him.
He's
so
there though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, is he?
Definitely there.
Yeah.
So
another thing you brought up, Brittany. Damn, I hate when this happens. Also, the wedding being a show
Mhm.
invention. Just clarification in the book, like that's literally a week-long wedding
Yeah.
festivity.
Yeah.
They have tournaments. Sir Criston Cole does kill Sir Joffrey, Lord Joffrey Monmouth or something, whatever.
I think it's
Longmouth.
lawn mouth.
Lawn
Yeah.
mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that happens in a tournament, like, so it doesn't come with the same animosity. And
Yeah.
then at the end they have like the royal wedding instead of the shotgun wedding.
But that's the thing I was kind of telling Justin before we all jumped on here, was that, you know, there's things that happen in the future. So like in the sense with the book with the tourney, you know, that was in the kind of in the sense in the future, even though we didn't get the week-long tourney like we were supposed to. But the fact that it was done by Criston Cole, but not in the same sort of sense. Obviously, Criston Cole was pissed because of what Joffrey told him, and damn. But I don't want to get too much into that right now. We'll definitely get into it. Yeah, there's something about death to the Joffreys, like Mel's saying, it doesn't end well. So, moral of the story: don't name your kid Joffrey. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's our third Game of Thrones wedding, I believe, and it's our second one to feature a death of a Joffrey. So, and you know, honestly, this Joffrey, he had it coming though. This guy, and for his last name to be Lawnmouth or whatever, like if he would have shut his mouth, he'd still be alive. You know, like he totally escalated that situation to where, you know, Criston Cole just snaps and brutally bashes his head in. I mean, that
Boy,
was.
talk about him snapping. Good God.
But before we get to that, let's talk about just the wedding itself, the introductions. We've already mentioned this a little bit about how Alicent enters the room in the green dress and she interrupts the king as he's saying, you know, we're joining two houses, you know, Targaryen and Velaryon, and you know she interrupts him. And the other introductions I thought were great, you know, for House Hightower and for the Velaryons. But then Damon walks in silent, like no announcement, just strolls in. He's been banished. This is what, the second time he's been banished, but he's like back the next week or so. It just walks in. They set him up a little you know, a little table, you know, a little plate at the end of the table, and
Mhm.
wow,
Mind you, when the queen does enter the room mid speech of the king, he's the only one that does not stand for her.
Yep.
And I'm like, what a motherfucking G. Like, Damon is his own, he's in his own world. I love it. Like when he walked in, I wrote it down, like order of people who entered, and the Lannisters, Lord Royce, at least talking to the king, you know, then enter the Velaryons, and then I wrote Daemon motherfucking Targaryen. Like that guy does not need to say a word. He just exists, and I'm here for it. I know Mel's here for it. That's why she's here.
Well, I mean, also like he's a grieving single man. So
so grieving.
Here's my question.
Okay.
Back in the day when I would like actually go to church and like visit somebody's church, if I got there late, they were not letting me in. It's like at a black church, if the pastor's speaking, you're not getting in until the pastor's done talking. So like,
oh my,
if the king is speaking, somebody has to be there in that hall to say, "Hey,
right,
hey, Prince Damon, maybe not the queen, but like everybody else, hey, the king is talking. Let's wait." Right.
I think if you're a dragon rider though, that might be like your ultimate like VIP pass into anywhere. You just go, oh yeah, well my dragon out here might say I can get in, right? Like,
oh yeah, no, and Tristan's right about that. I mean, Lord Westerling, what happened? Were you not watching the door? Like you were announcing everyone. Were you not watching the door? Good God.
At least one person has to like guard the door. One person.
You would think so.
Yeah.
What did y'all think about the dancing and like the drum beat that like kind of set the tension of it? Like Tristan, you said you were like shaking. I wasn't shaking, but like I knew like, okay, something's about to happen. Like, and like the music and the movement, it was all like, it was kind of like it was like I was like in trance. Like I was like, something crazy is about to happen. Brittany, what did you think about that whole thing?
The dancing was cool because I kind of got vibes of like as if with the arms out, they're kind of like flying, and as if they are the dragons, and it's a dance of dragons.
I
Foreshadowing.
did not think about that. That's really good.
Wow.
Wow, that's good.
I was about to say like same thing, like not
Oh,
just
wow.
the spreading out, but the
Mhm.
fact that you have so many people involved
Yes,
in this dance, and
exactly.
they're jumping in and out. You see them on sides, you see them
Yes.
switch sides, and you see like it's literally a dance of
Dance
dragons.
of
Like,
Dragons.
literally, yeah.
Yes, and this is what, like Tristan said, we are moving forward to the big thing, and something's happening. I have no idea. Siri's talking to me behind me. Stop it talking, Siri. Good God. Uh, but like the fact that they were dancing, and the movements were very, fluid and very just, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. The drum beat was great. One thing I didn't actually catch that John did catch was the hints of Reigns of Castamere playing. And I'm like, I did not catch that at all. I was about to hit
Yeah,
it at the
I didn't catch
rewatch,
it either. No.
but what is a Westerosi wedding without blood and death? I mean, and Reigns of Castamere apparently. So, um, but that dance, Justin, was really cool. I like how Rhaenyra is like, I haven't been much of a dancer, and Laner kind of comes back to say something along the lines of it being like a
Like combat.
fight, like
Yeah.
combat, and Rhaenyra kind of perks up on that idea, and she's a warrior in and of herself. So, but all this I really feel like foreshadows
Can I
things to
give you
come.
can I give you another parallel?
Go ahead.
Go for it.
While all this was happening on the dance floor, who was standing up at the top, just sitting there watching and not doing anything to like anything? King Viserys.
Yep.
Like he's literally sitting there watching the dance.
Mm-hmm.
And that dance is happening because of decisions that he's made or has not made.
Yeah.
So like that more foreshadowing. Like a lot of the decisions that Viserys has made, all of the decisions Viserys has made,
Yes.
is whether intentionally and not intentionally going to lead to this ultimate chaotic dance,
Mm-hmm.
like we saw on the dance floor last night.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, like, visually, I thought it was pretty cool how as people are kind of moving in and out of frame, then you're having a hard time finding people, and
Mm-hmm.
especially whenever the fight breaks out, and especially whenever Damon leaves the top table, he walks in there to talk to Rhaenyra. You can see Viserys as he's like he's like digging into his chicken or whatever he had to eat. Then he stops and he's looking up and he's watching to try to
Mm-hmm.
see it. And as a viewer, you're also like trying to see like, okay, what's going on? What's going to happen? And then the fight breaks out. And I mean, I think we're meant to believe that Damon is part of that, but then he's gone. So I guess my question is, where did Damon go? Like for such a great entrance, like he just makes like is like the Irish goodbye or whatever, where you just like leave the party without saying bye to anybody. Like he was out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Yeah.
that
No.
goes back to Damon and the characterization of him
Mm-hmm.
is that he likes to be in the mix until it becomes something big, and then he darts off.
Yeah.
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 I couldn't have said it any better, because initially I was like, what did Damon do? Or did someone on behalf of the king, did the king send someone to deal with Damon or what have you? But then when you start kind of getting closer into the fight itself and see it's Sir Criston beating the shit out of Joffrey.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, Joffrey was speaking with Sir Criston off to the side as Rhaenyra is still dancing, and I guess Laner was still dancing, and Joffrey's basically saying like, "Hey, like I know your secret, you know mine. We need to, make an alliance to protect each other or protect, our loved ones, basically." And Sir Criston's like, "Nope."
Yeah. And just to back up a little bit, so Joffrey, he is the lover of Laner.
Mhm.
And as we see early in the episode, Laner and Rhaenyra kind of have an arranged. I mean, they set up like an arranged marriage or whatever, an open marriage, I guess you would say. And yeah, I was just really surprised that, I mean, you see like Criston Cole kind of press to his breaking point. I'm just surprised that he did that there in front of all those people. Like, I didn't even know he was like, I thought he was on the outskirts of like the, where the dancing was happening. I didn't realize he was like, you know, in the middle of that. That's what was very surprising to me, that he would pick that out that time to, I guess like, I guess it's like the ultimate way to get it out in the open, right? Because you could tell like his secret was eating at him, and he wanted to, I mean, honestly, as we saw earlier in the episode, he wanted Rhaenyra to leave with him. But then I wonder, and I want to get y'all's thoughts on this. Do you think that, because, okay, as Tristan said, she says, "Hey, I'm the crown. I can't leave. I can't, skirt my duties. I've got to stay here." Do you think that had she given him his leave at that moment, do you think like that would have been a nice consolation for him? Like that would have been enough for him to say, "Okay, fine. I'm going to go to Essos on my own and create, build a new life."
I don't think he wanted to do that. He didn't want the leave unless it was with her.
With her? Okay.
Right. He wasn't asking for leave of himself. He basically said that he soiled his white
Right.
cloak, and in his mind, the way to remedy that was to be with Rhaenyra, to marry her, and that's why he was trying to convince her, marry me for love and not for duty. And Rhaenyra talks about how the Iron Throne's bigger than her, bigger than her family. It's what Aegon the Conqueror had started, and she basically has to keep that going. But no, I don't think Sir Criston wanted to leave unless it was with her, which I felt for him, of course. But it's like, dude, you made a choice because you knew it would end in death either way. But like, just because you want to unsoil your cloak, if you will, by marrying her, like that's not gonna like make it better at all. Tristan, what do you think about all that?
It would just be another thing that he would have to run from.
Yeah.
And what what ended up happening at the wedding ceremony or whatever you want to call it, the dinner, was he was just at the end of he was on edge. He was at the end of his rope. He's already grappling with the decision to break his vows, though I don't know how much of a true choice he had, but he had some agency in that. And then this guy I've never met before is coming up to me, and I'm already in this precarious position where I've just admitted this sin to the queen of all people, and I'm already at her mercy to whatever she decides. And then, like I said, this guy I don't even know. Who are you? Like just comes to me and like whispers to me while I'm at work. Let's think about it like that. I am at work. You know what I'm saying? I'm literally on the clock. And
I'm running point.
Right, like just coming up to me. And I know it may have sounded to Joffrey like this nice proposal, but it sounded like a threat to Criston.
Oh, sure.
And I was listening to an interview he did on one of the Game of Thrones podcasts a few weeks ago. Well, no, it was last week actually, after last week's episode. And Frankel basically said that Sir Criston, we don't know his past. Like we know he came from nothing. And we know that, being Kingsguard is like the highest honor his family's ever had. But like he explains that like Sir Criston at a certain point in his life was like a thug. Like he was he was a bad guy, to a degree. So like there's still some of that on him. And like the white cloak doesn't wash all of his past and a lot of like the rage and things that he had before that off of him. So
that would make a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, like this is just a bunch of things coming to a head at one time, and poor Joffrey just picked the wrong night. Like he's already been rebuffed. He had basically a marriage proposal rebuff, which reminds him of his low status and how much status he does not have in that world, even though he's a Kingsguard, which actually gives him less status because it restricts him even further he just
Right.
admitted something he did not have to admit to the queen.
Right.
And then he's been subtly threatened by somebody whose ass he can beat with the snap of a finger. So a lot of things come into a head at one time.
And like what Mel says here, the white cloak comment seemed a bit selfish. And I agree with that because, you know, he wanted to repent for his sin, if you want to call it that. But like, dude, as a white cloak, you cannot take a woman as a wife, right? I mean, but that's also on the pretense he was wanting to leave with her. And it's like, baby, do you think she's going to give up all her privileges and go live a penniless life with you in Pentos? No, 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 no.
Well, but I mean, in his defense, he does mention, "Hey, you know, I've listened to you tell me this for so long about how you hate that you're being told who you can marry, or this is your chance to break away. We can be free." And so, I mean, in fairness, he had a good case. Now, granted, like, reality is like she's the heir to the Iron Throne, so you're not going to toss that away. But if you're complaining about that, like, then someone goes, "Well, hey, here's the chance to, we can do whatever we want. We'll just sail to Essos and have this great free life." I see his point, and also you can also see, like, whenever she tells him about this arrangement that she has with Rhaenyra, and he says, "Oh, you want me to be your whore?" That, to me, like, when he said that, I think in that moment, if she'd said, "You know what, you're free to leave," I think he wanted to. He would have left, maybe, because as we see later on in the episode, after he kills, Joffrey, he's looking for a way out. He's attempting a suicide before Alicent stops him. So, I mean, there's so much going on with this guy. I think he's an interesting character. I just think that maybe, I think in that moment, if she would have said, "You can leave," I think he would have bounced. And then,
Can I say something?
Yeah,
he didn't do anything wrong. Technically,
right.
Kingsguard vows say that you are not allowed to take a wife. You're not allowed to father a child. It says absolutely nothing about sexual intercourse.
Right.
Nothing.
No, it doesn't.
Right. So he did not technically break a vow, but I understand the guilt part. If he actually ran away and tried to marry her, that would be breaking the vow.
She basically told him to do it. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he couldn't really say no. He could kind of, but like, not really. It was her show.
And on the comment that Sir Criston pretty much leaves with saying to Rhaenyra, "You want me to be your whore. I'm sorry. Is the shoe on the other foot now and you don't like it? You rat bastard." Like, God. Like, she was into you. You're into her. You know, like Tristan said, he technically was not breaking a vow, unless there is a vow of celibacy that maybe we're overlooking. I don't know. But either way, like, you're in good, dude. Like, take what you can get and run with it.
And again, it's the death of youth, right? Because he has to come to the realization, just like Rhaenyra did, that she's going to be married. Like, this is just part of the game. This is part of the process. So, like, I think he obviously tried to, he was going to kill himself before Alicent saves him. Again, another Alicent episode, man, MVP of the season, by the way. But I think what we see now with Criston is that he's reborn now, right? He has a new purpose. He will have a new purpose going forward, like, to say the least. So again, for all three, like, Criston is relatively young in that world. All three, Alicent, Rhaenyra, and Criston, the youngest main characters that we have on the show, I think, they're all reborn again in some type of way after this episode.
What is it? They say baptism by fire.
Yeah.
You know, kind of essence. Yeah. No, I think that's really, really good to say, for sure.
So let's talk about Alicent a little bit more. Early in the episode, we see Larys Strong, who Brittany mentioned. What's his nickname? The Clubfoot?
Clubfoot.
Okay. So we see him. They're in the that's the Godswood, right? Or the Godswood tree, I believe.
It's the Wayward Tree, but but it's basically for those who hold the old gods as their faith instead of the seven.
Right. So Alicent spends a lot of time there, it seems like. And
It's very curious too, because she was raised in the light of the Seven. So
interesting.
Larys talks about that. Go ahead, Justin.
yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, he mentions, Larys mentions he spills the tea about the tea, that Rhaenyra was given that tea by the Grand Maester.
Mhm.
And you can see how much that hurts her right there. She's like, "Oh, she lied to me. Like, she lied to me." That was great. That's such a great scene. And
She lied to her about Damon, though. She didn't lie to her
exactly.
about
Ex-
anything
But
else.
no, you're right.
Technically.
But then later on, whenever Criston Cole is summoned to the Queen's quarters, she is asking him about Damon and Rhaenyra, but he doesn't know that. All he hears is the Rhaenyra part and knowing that something happened on that night, and he just comes out and confesses, like, because this is something that's definitely, is on his soul, or what he wants to get this out there and get
weight lifted.
right.
Yeah.
That was an incredible scene also, because
Mhm.
it's like, wow, this show is so good, because they're not, like, he's confessing when he doesn't have to confess, because she doesn't know anything about this. She's talking about Damon.
Something completely
Yeah,
different.
the show is
Yeah.
the way it meshes together is incredible.
Well, like to go back to Larys and Alicent, like what Brittany and I were alluding to is the metaphor that he's basically talking about Alicent when he says
foreigner
brings out like this flower that's thriving
right.
in an area where it's really not supposed to.
Right.
And that's Alicent, and that from the moment that they speak, that's where we see a shift, right? Like just her bringing in Sir Criston Cole is a major power move, because she leaves out of that with a key alliance that she doesn't even know. I don't even think she understands how important the alliance that she's making, or having Criston Cole in her pocket. I don't think she understands at the moment how important that is. I think she does understand that point when she strolls into the wedding party. I think by that point she's starting to get her ducks in a row. She understands the path forward. Like what Otto said to her was tragic, but unfortunately true and accurate. Like her survival after the king dies, and the king will die very soon, will be dependent almost entirely on Rhaenyra and the whims of her and her king consort. So she has to start making those moves. She's alone in that world, right? And that's why the green dress was so important, because she's signaling to House Hightower that she still needs their support.
Yeah.
So
well, and I think now, because you brought up about Otto again, and basically him kind of giving her a last warning of, you need to prepare Aegon to be king, unless you're basically going to bend the knee to Rhaenyra and pray that she will be forgiving, or whatever the case may be. But to kind of put that into the perspective of her wearing the green dress, Otto's gone, but by Alicent wearing the green dress, it's very much saying, you know what, my father might not be here, but I am here, and I am basically doing the things that he has always told me to do. Because she gets frustrated with him at that farewell, saying, if you hadn't been so fixated on making Aegon the heir, like none of this would have happened had that not been your train of, like, your single-minded train of thought. And I think it was just, everything was just so well done, because none of this, like the details of it, is not in the book. And I think it's just visually a great representation of how the story is moving forward. However, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, because I'm just so excited for what's going to happen in the next few episodes. But my God, I'm not team Alicent, of course. Sorry, Tristan, but she's making moves, like you said, and maybe doesn't even fully realize it. But having Sir Criston Cole on her side now, because again, he's the sworn protector to Rhaenyra. It's a huge shift to go against your princess in favor of the queen. So Yeah, shit's gonna happen.
I mean, I'll just say it. She's gonna hook up with Kristen Cole, right? It's gonna eventually, right? That's down the road. No? Oh, y'all okay. Wow. Okay, I'm totally wrong about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't see that.
But another thing, like this episode really crystallizes it. I'm gonna shoot Otto some bail. Is Otto a schemer? Yes.
Right.
But I haven't seen one thing that he schemed on that wasn't accurate. Like it wasn't gonna happen.
Right.
This is what we need to know. Right? Like two things can be true. Rhaenyra could possibly be a really good queen, and elevating her as heir does wonders in trying to change the markedly sexist and misogynistic society in which that world is set in, right? On the other side, Rhaenyra being queen, because of the society that they're in, is going to lead to, like Rhaenys said, knives are going to come out. Like there's
all out war,
civil war. Like there's no other way around it. I think Otto would tell Viserys the same thing, or he would have told any other king. He would have told Jaehaerys that. Like, he would have told. I think he would have told Viserys that if he married the Velaryon girl. Like, that fact is never not going to be true. Like, if a female is put on the Iron Throne, a lot of people are going to contest that, right? What we see with Alicent is, again, subtly, she's making these moves, not just in last night's episode, but think about when they were at the hunting place in the woods. Like, she's sitting with these ladies and she's, talking to them, getting to know them, building these like soft allegiances and alliances that will come into play later on. But I can't fault Otto for accurately predicting something that is definitely going to happen. And my last point, like, it seems every character in the show thinks they're doing the right thing. And that's another thing that Game of Thrones and like George R.R. Martin does so well is it's these ironic outcomes. Like, people think they're doing the right thing, or that they're doing something for the good of the realm or for the good of the family. But like, when you have so many different angles, there's bound to be conflict and there's bound to be clashes within those angles. Unfortunately, it's going to lead to like a near destruction of House Targaryen and everything around it.
And it's curious of you saying that. Kind of leads me to talking about King Viserys for a second. After they return from High Tide, he's doing poorly. I mean, he was seasick the entire time.
He's in bad shape. He's in real bad shape.
Now, Paddy Considine in an interview said that basically what the king has is leprosy, and leprosy can affect the nerves, skin, all different parts of the body. And he's just doing really poorly. So when you see him sitting in the chair, he's being tended to by the maesters. By the way, Tristan, we got our first introduction to Orwell. I was like, that's cool. He kind of has a bigger role to play in later Targaryen timeline. But the king is talking to his hand, Lord Strong, and basically asking, will I be remembered as a good king? And I think that would be natural for someone who feels like, okay, they're slowly dying. They're going to meet their end one day soon. They're starting to think about their legacy. And the way that Viserys spoke was as if he was unhappy with his reign, because there were no big conflicts that he had to settle or things of that nature. And Lord Strong is trying to reassure him, saying, you carried on Jaehaerys's legacy, because Jaehaerys was basically it was a peaceful time under Jaehaerys. And the fact that King Viserys was saying, in other words, he wanted to be tested to see if he could have risen to the occasion. And Lord Strong tells him, for those who have been tested, they often say that they wish they never were. And Viserys says, any other person would say that I would have risen, but you know what? You're right. And I should just be content with that, basically.
Yeah.
I thought that was an incredible scene, because I think we've talked about this before. This Strong has no other motives other than to serve his king and to serve the realm. What do you think about that, Tristan?
I think Viserys would have been a better king if he was tested. I don't know how he would have responded. It depends on the nature of the test, but he would have been a better king, if for no other reason that he hopefully would have gotten in the habit of addressing problems head on, or not being so worried about the worst outcome. But he just sits back and allows so many things to happen.
Right.
To me, I feel like, one, he's still grieving Emma, and the tragedy that came with that. And another thing is, because so much stuff around him is failing, I feel like he's just trying to wait stuff out until the end.
Yeah.
Like, there was no reason for him to get on the ship. This is unprecedented shit. For you to get on the ship to essentially beg someone lesser than you for their son's, for a marriage pact. Like that's unprecedented. She couldn't help herself. He sullied himself. He shamed himself by coming here to do that. And for him, I don't even think he cares. It's like, I'm just trying to get to the end of this.
Right.
Like, I know I'm dying soon. I want to get Rhaenyra, married off, get that headache done, and just kind of ride out the rest of his reign.
That political headache.
Yeah, she's a political headache in so many ways, but
she's the political headache.
But like, everything's crumbling, because of like all these different messes that he refuses to address head on. And yeah, I'm sorry, Viserys. Like, we're not going to remember your reign well, right? You're the guy who started the Dance of the Dragon. Sorry. No, it won't go well at all, actually. No.
And I can't wait to talk about after he dies, because I have a lot of feelings and opinions about that.
I'm surprised he makes it to the next episode. Like,
from the look ahead, I think that might be his last. He's in real bad shape. He ages. It looks horrible.
He's starting to look like the king from Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, the King of Rohan.
Yeah, he sent me that meme.
He has a mask on his face. Like,
he's got a mask on his face.
Got a mask, like, to cover up all the sores, man. Like, he's out of there. He won't make it to episode 7. There will not be Paddy Considine in episode 7.
And that's so unfortunate, because he's such a good Viserys. So good.
He's the most disrespected king. I mean, like, Corlys doesn't even come outside to greet him. No. There's countless times where he's been disrespected. And also, nothing ever works out in his favor. You think about the original tournament from episode 1, the hunt, this wedding, like, this wedding was going to kick off, a week full of, tournaments and feasting. Yep. And instead it's a shotgun wedding at the end where they're, where he collapses. He collapses multiple times in this episode. Looks horrible. And somehow he looks worse in the next episode.
3 times he collapsed.
Yeah.
3 times.
Well, yeah.
He couldn't even get through his speech, man. My man had a whole speech prepared. He got interrupted at least twice. Like, nothing going wrong.
I mean, can the king retire, or do you just have to die? Because, like, I feel like if there's a retirement clause, he's like, hey, can we just, like, make this happen? Because I want out of here.
It's death. That's how kings retire. It's the only way. I'm trying to think. I think there's a Targaryen king who I guess the closest is Jaehaerys, who kind of ceded parts of his reign to Otto before he passed, but that's the closest we get. Like, either a king is too young to fully take over, or that king is too old, and somebody pretty much takes away part of their ruling. But
there would be someone who kind of serves as, like, Lord Protector, right? If there isn't a hand, I guess, in place, which is kind of getting ahead of myself. But
Jaehaerys was both ways. Jaehaerys was too young, and he had a Lord Protector until he came of age, right? And then he had a Lord Protector as he.
Well, it was his mother. No, his mother, who kind of was Queen Regent.
His mother was Queen Regent, but they also had other males.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's right.
Kind of stepping in and kind of showed him the ropes and stuff.
Right. Sorry.
So not a great episode for Viserys Targaryen, but for his brother at the very beginning of the episode, we get to meet his lady wife very briefly. We meet Lady Rhea Royce of Runestone, which, man, that's a tongue twister right there. So I've listened to some podcasts about this, and in the book, it doesn't. Well, in the book, they mention that she dies, but they don't put Damon at the scene. Brittany, what'd you think about, first of all, meeting Lady Royce or Rhea Royce? And she's not what Damon kind of made her out to be, like she's not the hideous beast that he kind of, that she was worse than sheep or goats or
Right.
whatever.
Seems
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. In many ways, she reminded me of young Lady Mormont. And when we
good call.
First meet her, she was the lord or lady of her house, a very young little girl, and when Sansa pretty much says, "Oh, I you're named after my aunt. You share her beauty. My mother was not beautiful, but she was a warrior, and that's what I am." And I kind of got that vibe with Lady Royce. But how she carries herself, even amongst her cousin, when she meets out in the fields, if you will, and she's like, "No, I'm going to go hunting on my own. Peace out." Takes off, encounters Damon. Because you're right, in the book, it does not say what exactly happened, other than the fact that
she fell off her horse,
smashed her head, that kind of thing. Which one wouldn't really argue that, because that can happen. Very, especially the kind of terrain that is in the Vale. Vale has very high hills and mountains and things like that. So possible. But that was another thing that I really enjoyed with this episode. The showrunners taking the creative liberty to put Damon into the mix so that he could be rid of his lady wife, assumed to inherit her seat in the Vale, and then he's free to remarry or do whatever, because Damon does have sights on someone else. Okay, let's just be real. But to talk specifically about this, the fact that Matt Smith never said a damn word to her, and she is being so accusatory, letting him have it, scornful woman, I get it, I'm with you, and then realizes why he's there, was so well done. Tristan, what did you think?
I've always thought Damon killed his wife, even in the book. I think the fact that it doesn't place him there is even more confirmation for me, because the fact that he has a dragon. And so on the timeline in the book, he's fighting in the Stepstones. But there's nothing to show that he can't like take his dragon to the Vale and you say make it look like an accident. I've always believed Damon killed his wife, because even in the book, immediately he goes to claim like lands and titles and stuff like that. That is such a Damon move, so always believe Damon killed his wife. So last night was just confirmation for me. No, great scene by Matt Smith. So many of the best Matt Smith scenes in this season have been without words, right? Crab feeder at the end, like there's so many, like, because he's able to like move an audience with just his face.
He can emote very well. Very well.
God, yes.
Amazing at that. Excellent scene. I loved how she had like so much of what Dame said about her in King's Landing got back to her in the Vale, which is also kind of how she knew that something was afoot. Like he wasn't there to converse. Like he was there for like,
or to consummate their marriage.
He definitely wasn't there for that. In the last part of that scene, like we see that this is a Damon staple. Like he has issues. He's impotent in so many different areas with so many different people that this is just kind of like the realm's the realm's little rumor, realm gossip that we just, everybody knows. So excellent scene, great Matt Smith scene. I wish we had more Rhea Royce, but Game of Thrones is great for introducing a major character in the same scene that they kill him off. Like we just have to expect this at this point.
You know who I wish we actually had more of?
Who's that?
The young woman who played Lady Lena.
Mm.
My God, was she beautiful? But how she carried herself, especially in the conversation with Damon at the wedding. Oh my God.
Well, and I mean, she was definitely, coming on to Damon pretty strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Damon is working his way to his niece, and they talk.
Listen, as long as it stays in the family, it's okay.
Right. They speak in High Velaryon, which seems like they're the only two characters that really do that in this show.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, he tells her, "Hey, my marriage is resolved," and then she challenges him to like, "Hey, you're armed. Go through the King's Guard, kill the king, take me. Like, let's get married, whatever." And I like how she challenged him. Like you definitely see the dragon in her also. It comes out, especially when she's around him, and to go back to whenever she's talking to both Rhaenyra and when she proposes the open marriage and when she tells Criston about it, she's basically just, regurgitating what Daemon told her in the previous episode. So you see his influence on her. And then when you see these two dragons meet on the dance floor, it's a pretty crazy scene.
That being that marriage is a political arrangement that it shouldn't stop you from enjoying the pleasures of life. And yeah, you're absolutely right. She echoed that to pretty much anyone who will listen, if you will. But going back to now Damon with Lady Lena, and it's like Damon just, he wants it all, right? He wants whomever, whenever. He's like, if I say so, let's go, kind of situation. But before, that really leads to anything, that's when the fight breaks out with Sir Criston and Joffrey. But I really wanted to see more of this actress who played Lady Lena. Oh my God, she was incredible. It's very unfortunate we only got one episode of her, but you know what? We got one episode, so hey.
So are we going to see a third actor playing Rhaenyra?
Yeah.
I guess we will, right?
Yeah, I think know. And Lena, I think so.
I mean, I haven't looked into see like the casting, but I can see them adding. She's going to age about 10 years, so 12. She should be around 25, 26. So I don't know if they have to, but they might. I don't know.
Yeah, it was we'll have to see, but I'm almost confident that we're getting new actors to play Rhaenyra and Lena for sure. One Kind of Beauty, LDJ says the fight was deadly. Absolutely, literally deadly.
And speaking of Rhaenyra, you got to feel bad for the guy when he sees what happens. Which that was like whenever he gets knocked to the side, and he sees his lover, that lawnmouth guy, dead, and his face just like caved in. When his reaction, him crying, was very much a Game of Thrones scene. You know what I'm saying? Like it reminded me of
Catelyn.
Yeah, so many of those, so much that happened in the original series. Like his reaction and everything was great to that.
Yeah, and then to almost immediately be forced to marry, his betrothed right there and then, as he's like, still mourning. Yeah, he's got blood coming out of his nose. There's still blood of his paramour on the floor at the end of the hall, and
the rat is like
tears in the eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the king like passes out, but Rhaenyra like doesn't pay any attention to that. He's still like weeping, over here, and I mean, that was insane. So insane.
Youth, man. The same thing. Death of Youth. The whole episode was like everyone's childhood, or just this innocence. Like it's done. It's over.
Yeah.
It's all summer kids. These are summer children.
Right.
Nights of summer. Nights of summer. Shout out to binge mode. I miss binge mode.
Every day I miss binge mode.
I know.
Well, they're still out there. They're just separate. They have their own
No, it's not
separate
the
No, they-
same.
they
It's
need
not
to
the
No,
be
same,
together.
but their individual podcasts are pretty
no,
great.
bring back
Especially
Mallory and Jason. No, bring them back together.
Jason's actually he works in the official podcast of
Yeah.
Game of
Yes, I
Thrones.
know. I'm aware, but bring back Mallory is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, what did y'all think of? I'm jumping back to High Tide with Corlys and Rhaenys having this private conversation about what's going to happen with their son, and the fact that the line of succession was questioned, and will the kids be given the last name Velaryon as tradition of carrying the father's name, and then Viserys saying, but when the child ascends the Iron Throne, he or she will be Targaryen. Like, I don't think that was something that was actually discussed in the book, Tristan, but like, what did you think of all that?
It's evidence again of something Viserys just simply failed to think about and consider before. So again, I hate to go back to this, but he didn't really have to name Rhaenyra official heir. What he could have said was she is, heir in training, basically until I'm able to produce a male heir with my, new wife, whatever.
Right.
That would have, it would have caused some consternation within Rhaenyra, but the realm would have been at least more stable, right? Especially once he had the son. None of this would have happened, honestly. But because of that, again, he just failed to consider certain things, and because he put himself in the crown in a precarious position, he had to come to Corlys and negotiate, which is already a precarious position. Because why are you negotiating? You're the king. Like, you have the crown jewel, which is the princess who's, realms delight, heir to the Iron Throne, so on and so forth. So he had to think about that. Now, what's interesting is with Corlys is doing all this negotiating, but he's also you can still see kind of like the inferiority complex kind of reeking off him a little bit, because he asked Rhaenys, like, did I overextend myself?
Yeah.
Right. So you can tell that he's clearly reaching up, and he doesn't know the limits of reaching up. So he's just kind of reaching for what he can grab. And Viserys, as a weak king, is just allowing more things for him to reach up and grab. And he's giving him kind of the runway to overextend himself. Like, again, you should not go to him. He should come to you. If you do come to him, there needs to be a complete royal, like, welcome. Like, this is just standard as a king. This is standard if a lord comes to your castle, right? Better yet, the fucking king. So, it's just evidence.
But you had said it in
Viserys' failure as a king. That's it.
Yeah, I think you had said it in a previous episode about how House Velaryon, basically, when they decided to kind of fight in the Stepstones against the Crab Feeder, they were kind of in open rebellion against the Targaryens, and so I think that's just a continuation of being in that rebellion, if you will, by not greeting the king as one should, and bringing the king to your hall. By the way, that hall looked super cool with, what is it called? The Hall of Nine or something along those lines, with the statues. That looked really cool. However, with like what you're saying about Corlys and the kind of inferiority complex of now questioning, did I overstep, and that kind of thing. I also wonder, because of the fact that he made mention about controlling the king's navy and then also having half of the fleet of dragons, if you will, if he still thinks in his head, okay, I have some leverage to make these demands or question the intentions of the king. If my house is going to be in a legal union with your house, I kind of want to clarify some things. You see what I'm saying? So it's ballsy.
Viserys went there with one ship. The royal fleet was one ship.
Yeah.
Corlys Velaryon brought at least 50 ships
to
King's Landing to the wedding ceremony.
And melees. I was so excited to see the Red Queen, the dragon that Rhaenys flies. That is her dragon, which was super cool, because that dragon will have a part to play in.
Did she actually fly it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, with the exception of Corlys, everyone Lena, they all are dragon riders.
Hmm.
And we'll get to see Lena fly her dragon. I don't want to spoil it, but
No,
we'll
let's
get
go
to see
the
her fly her.
next
Huh?
episode. Looks like.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. That's a big mama.
So, do you have any other thoughts on before we look ahead to next week? Do you have any other thoughts about this episode before we wrap it up?
Classic Game of Thrones wedding is all I can say. And kudos to the Hightowers having a pretty wild episode. As much as I'm not Team Green, I'm Team Black all the way. I said it before, but I'll say it again for those who are watching. Leave a comment in the chat. Whose team are you bending the knee to? Team Green for House Hightower or Team Black for House Targaryen? Let us know in the chat.
Good Queen Alicent for me.
Let's not compare her to good Queen Alicent, okay? Let's not do that because you damn well know that's not the case.
Good-hearted queen, man. I'm riding with Alicent.
All right.
Well,
you poor thing, but bless your heart.
Speaking of Alicent, the title of the next episode is The Princess and the Queen. I wonder who that's about, right? I mean, obviously
Damon and
right. No, so we get what's coming next. Did everybody watch that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, I did.
Okay, let's
I'm
get
here
into
for
it
it.
because I got questions.
All right, Team Black. Woo! Sorry.
So
Sorry. Team
it
Black.
looks like we jump ahead at least 10 years, if not more.
Amber's conflicted. Why? Sorry. Continue, Justin.
I understand because like Team Green, there's not enough there for me to know who all's on the roster. You know, I need
Justin,
how deep is that bench? That's all I got to know.
Justin,
Yeah.
You're my best friend here, but
Yep.
this may make or break our friendship. I'm just saying.
I already voted in the poll. I was the first person to vote in the poll.
Okay.
So there
You're
we go.
safe. You're safe for now until next week.
Team Green gets really deep. That's all I'll say. Team Green has an unlimited salary cap.
Okay.
I'm a known front runner, so maybe I'll change allegiance. Yeah.
Oh God, it's like pick 'em. Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. So for next week,
I'm a ring chaser. Yeah. No. So we jump ahead about 10 years. It looks like, and Viserys, as we mentioned earlier, it looks even worse shape if that's even possible.
Theoden. Sorry.
Theoden. Yeah. From Lord
King
of the Rings.
Theoden from Lord of the Rings. That's who he looks like now.
Yeah. Honestly, he does.
He does. It's really bad.
Yeah. If you haven't seen the Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, definitely watch that movie.
Oh, the comparison was.
Make sure you block out about 4 hours of runtime to watch that, but check it out. It's a good movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So something is happening in the Stepstones.
Mm-hmm.
We see the actor switches happen. We have the new Alicent and Rhaenyra, and I'm not familiar with either one of these actresses, but like just from this minute-long clip, I think that we're in good hands. It looks like they're going to do well with these roles. We have a voiceover from Lara Strong where he's talking about children, and he says, "What are children but a weakness? Through them, you imagine you will persist forever." Then we see a shot of a young, maybe like early teenage Aegon, who's fighting in the yard, and as Viserys looks on, and Alicent tells him, "You will be our king." And then we see Damon is dragon riding with Lena. Are they together? It seems like they are. I guess y'all know the answer to that, but it definitely appeared that me.
Listen. We'll do spoilers about the episode we currently watch. We're not going to give spoilers for the upcoming episodes. Let's put it that way.
I guess like if y'all can just not spoil stuff, but just kind of talk about it, because the next part I really do want to talk about, because it appears Rhaenyra has children, a few children. And Alicent tells her, to have one like that is a mistake. To have three is an insult. And we get to see Sir Harwin Strong. Now, it looks like is Harwin Strong the father of her children? Is that what we're kind of angling toward?
That is never confirmed
nor denied.
But as you can clearly see, Rhaenyra is blonde. She's a Targaryen.
Yeah.
Her husband is also blonde as a Velaryon, those children have black hair.
Yep.
You can do your Ned Stark and go through the histories.
I mean, okay. I mean, Rhaenys is Baratheon, and even in the show, she's different looking than what she's described in the books. In the book, she has dark hair, as you know, because she's Baratheon and Targaryen. So one could even suggest, hey, maybe it skipped a generation.
Maybe.
Just saying.
We also know her husband likes geese, not
right.
Right. Or vice versa. So
yeah,
we'll let you do your draw your conclusions, but there are rumors about the
have your theories,
the lineage, the parentage of Rhaenyra's children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, and not only do we see Aegon, Justin, we also do see Aemon, who is
Aemon One Eye.
Aemon One Eye. Yep, he is a little brother to Aegon. So Aegon's the firstborn to Alicent, then it's Helena, and then it's Aemon, and then there's a fourth one that I can't remember off the top. It starts with the letter D. But anyway, so we do see Aemon because there's dragons.
Yep.
There's definite dragons. One of Rhaenyra's sons says Dracarys.
Yeah, and someone is burned. I could not tell who that was going to be.
Are you sure that was Rhaenyra's son?
Oh my god.
Are you sure?
I hate you.
Oh my. Are you sure?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot of conflict. A lot of new alliances happening next week with this time jump. Yeah. It's the shit is literally hitting the fan.
But now, because I at least already know the titles for the remainder of this season.
Yeah.
And in correlation to that of the books and the book chapters, I'm very excited to see, of course, how this whole season is going to end. But knowing that we have a second season coming, it's like, fuck yes. Like, I need to see all of this shit unfold. I need to see a son for a son to unfold, damn it.
Man.
You know what? So we're at the midway point of the season. So how does that stack up with the book? Like if how far through the book would you be if you were to compare to the midway point of the TV season?
Man.
From an actual book, I say Dance of the Dragons starts around like page 353.
Shoot, I can go and tell you right now. I'll be right back.
And where we're at now, probably like page 415 or something like that, 420. Like it's so much of what's happened are like a few sentences in the book. Yeah. I've talked about that a lot. Frank and I talked about that a lot, but like, and Brittany as well. Like, so we're not honestly that far. Like, this is a 20-year thing. This is a 20-year conflict.
Okay.
And we're in year 5? So we're not really that far into things like battle lines are being drawn, but like the actual conflict lasts for a while.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about like how many seasons this might go, and I think you said that originally you thought maybe 2 seasons, and I thought, well, that's probably not enough. But now I'm thinking, I think you're going to be right. Like I mean, maybe it'll be 3, but
3 at the most.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of, there's still plenty of runway, but I mean, there's lots of, obviously they can take a lot of detours because, as you just mentioned, that sentences in the book become whole episodes or huge plot points in episodes, so that they definitely can fill it and keep going. But I don't know.
Loudmouth's death is a couple sentences.
Yeah, it really genuinely is. Yeah. So I'm looking at the book because I have Fire and Blood here with me. I'm almost done. If you can kind of see where I am with my bookmark right there.
Yeah, gotcha. Wow,
so
that's good.
In terms of where we are in the book, we're about halfway.
Yeah.
If you will, in terms of when at least Viserys becomes king. And then to the point that we're at in time with this episode, like only just a few. Can I turn it this way? There we go. Just a few pages.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the big event. I mean, we're getting to, and that's what takes up a lot of the chapters. And those by far have been like the best chapters. Like, and I'm so happy now that the showrunners decided to tell this story out of Fire and Blood. Not to say like I wouldn't want to see Aegon's Conquest, because that's like a must see. But in terms of what I've been reading from the book, these are probably the best chapters out of the whole thing. Just my personal opinion.
By far.
But, yeah.
I owe an apology. I originally did not want Dance of the Dragons. I'm so fixated on Robert's Rebellion, because that's a story that needs to be told. Like,
yes,
you need to see that. But I was wrong. Like, I think Dance of the Dragons will set up every other prequel series. Even if they go back and do Aegon's Conquest, it's important to understand what happened as a result of Aegon's Conquest.
Yes.
Or if they do Robert's Rebellion, it's important to understand how this internal conflict between the Targaryens laid further groundwork for Robert's Rebellion and the ultimate complete destruction of the Targaryen dynasty. So I think that this has been done really well, amazingly well. I guess I didn't want Dance of the Dragons because nothing good comes from it. Like, nothing
except
good.
A great story.
Amazing story. Nothing good comes from it. It is remarkably tragic. In so
really
many
honestly
different ways.
is.
But it's very well done. I love, like Justin, you talked about the pacing. The pacing to me has been perfect, even with the time jumps, especially with the time jumps.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I can't wait for the rest of the season.
And for those of you who want to even just kind of go back, if you really wanted to, Princess Shireen, Stannis Baratheon's daughter, tells Sir Davos Seaworth the story about the Dance of Dragons. So this was already kind of like planted, if you will. And
Joffrey tells
Marjorie.
He tells Marjorie exactly how Dance of the Dragon ends.
Yeah.
So Frank actually sent a video, and I almost played it in front of my wife, who has not.
Don't do that to her.
But she would probably. I mean, she's seen the Joffrey Marjorie episode. She's seen every Game of Thrones episode, but you probably don't remember that. So I was like, let me close that. No, you don't need to know how this ends, but it does not end well. It
doesn't. And you know, my brother, he's been watching the HBO show and then listening to our podcast afterwards. And he asked me not to spoil anything. I'm like, well, even before I started reading the book, I already knew it was going to happen because like, you just kind of already know.
Well, I mean, you kind of know, like from the 10,000 feet in the air, kind of looking down, you kind of know, but like these individual characters, I don't,
it's the details that you don't know. And that's what I'm saying, with seeing the creative liberties that the showrunners have taken to move the story on and to fill in the holes. Like I said, with the whole placing Damon as the person who killed his wife, and then moving Joffrey's death into the welcome feast, if you will, for what would have been a week long of wedding festivities. Not that that's really neither here nor there, but like just filling in those holes for me has actually been quite thrilling because it just makes sense.
Making Alicent and Rhaenyra the same age I think probably had the biggest profound impact on this story, on the show.
I couldn't agree more.
Because Alicent is not somebody you don't care about Alicent too much until the big conflict starts happening. But like, she's not somebody we know that much. Like, she's 10 years older than Rhaenyra. Them being the same age and them being like best friends and almost like sisters in some type of way,
or lovers.
That's the tension. Yeah, that's the tension right there.
It adds a remarkably high layer of tension to the story that was not present in the book. You're able to look at everybody, like you said, from this 10,000 feet view. Like, Daemon Targaryen. Why am I supposed to care about Daemon Targaryen? I don't care about Daemon Targaryen. Rhaenyra, like, is just a name that's told in all these stories. Like,
just
she makes it in the Game of Thrones like 3 or 4 times. Honestly, like, they mention Rhaenyra a lot in Game of Thrones, but like when we actually are watching the show and we can actually like ascribe some type of connection to these characters, it just adds that much. Like the stakes are just higher. Like you're actively rooting for a side. Where when I read the book, I'm pretty sure I was rooting for the blacks in the book, right?
Yeah. I'm rooting for the blacks in the book. I'm just saying, like,
in the
because
show, I am Team Green. Like I'm rooting for Alicent because I'm not necessarily relate to her because she's a woman in that particular world, but I can empathize much more with her than I can any other character.
Is your favorite color green? No. Just kidding. No, I definitely see where you're coming from, and as someone who's still working through the book, I can see where while reading the book you're rooting for the blacks just because of how it's described. And keep in mind, and Justin, and for everyone else who has not read the book, the way that Fire and Blood is written is from the perspective of a maester. You know, how else are the histories and such, recorded.
But real quick, isn't it kind of an unreliable narrator? That's what I've heard.
It's like 3 of them.
There's like 3 of them. Yeah. So like there's a testimony that is in the book, but we haven't seen the character in the show. However, I do question whether or not Mushroom Tristan may have had a brief cameo in this last night's episode.
I think
we did.
He was drumming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they put a close up on his face. They wouldn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So Mushroom was Rhaenyra's jester, if you will, fool.
Right. He's a little person who's like her. Yeah.
Yeah. And he gives his testimony of, his accounts with the princess and everything that transpired. But then there's conflicting testimonies from other people whom the maesters are going to probably lean more towards because they're of the same status, if you will, not a fool's word or anything like that. So, but even still, like, because even with Sir Criston going to Rhaenyra to beg for her to leave with him, that's one account. And I think that's actually from Mushroom's account. Mushroom was the one who said Sir Criston went to Rhaenyra, whereas the maesters would say, no, it was Rhaenyra who went to Sir Criston to say, come leave with me. Mm-hmm. So, they're making choices and they're obviously making really good choices to make the story more compelling and more dramatic. And because once you see that Sir Criston's been burned by Rhaenyra, you're going to really fully understand why he is the way that he is in future episodes. So I'm overall so ecstatic with just how the show is going. John and I said it last night. Like this show just keeps getting better and better with every episode. 1,000%.
It's excellent. I love that they kept the Game of Thrones theme because it just feels like Game of Thrones is back. I've said that every week, but like it just makes me so happy to hear that music on a Sunday night. Like it's just the best.
Yeah.
Hey, before we go, we got a question from Mel. She's asking, how much older is Damon than Rhaenyra? My guess is like 12, 15 years. What do y'all say?
I think less than that.
Less than that? Okay.
If in last night's episode, Rhaenyra is, let's say she's 19, I would put Damon around 27, 28.
Oh, really? Okay.
Something like that.
In the book, it would be much different.
So
King Viserys in the book is like 35.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that would put Damon at like maybe 10 years younger or a little bit less younger. And then in the book, Rhaenyra is like 8 when her father ascends the throne. So big age difference in the book, but in the show, they're making it a little bit closer to make it less cringy.
That brings up a good point about the ages, because we do see that Otto tells Alicent that, hey, the king will not be an old man, right? So you have to wonder, like in that time period, in obviously this fictional world, what was an old man? I mean, obviously you do see people who are older, like in their 60s or 70s, maybe, but like,
I mean, people die like in their 40s.
Yeah, I mean, or
Jaehaerys was like 90.
Okay.
Something when he or 70 something. I can't remember.
Jaehaerys was in his 70s.
Yeah, and Queen Alice.
He came into the crown really young.
He was like 14,
15, and he basically ruled until he died.
Yeah, and Queen Alicent was like in her 70s.
Yeah,
maybe.
So how old is Viserys right now in the show? Before we jump again, do y'all think?
I would say that I think the show aged him probably around 5 to 7 years. In the book, like I said, he's in his mid 30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
He looks in like his mid 40s in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't look like a 35-year-old man.
No.
Yeah,
No,
not at all.
no, I'm 42 years old, and I feel like I look like a kid compared to Viserys. So
Yeah, and Justin, I forget that sometimes you're 40 something years old because you do not look like you're 40 something years old. Just saying. So
well, I
you're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Thank you.
Viserys looks like a White Walker in next week's episode.
He looks so-
Jeez.
I mean, that's why I like. Is he gonna make it to the finale, or is he
Yeah.
like to the episode 9 maybe? Because episode 9 is usually that episode where, spoiler, but that's where like Ned meets his end, and that's where other characters throughout the seasons meet their end. But no,
I can't see him getting past the next. I can't see him getting past the next
Next
episode at all. I can't see that.
I'm
Like,
trying to
he has-
see how
his
old he
whole
was when
arm
he died.
his whole arm is leopard up. You know, like he can't stand. He's passing out every day. Like the fact that he made it to this 10-year jump. Like I need to see what they were doing to like get him ready to play every day. Like I would like what cortisone shot.
right?
Okay,
They-
so in the book, Viserys was 52 when he died
Oh, when he
and
died.
reigned for most of Westeros for 26 years.
Oh, that's you know what? That's we're getting really we're getting really close. Like it's right there.
I'm telling you, we are there. We're there.
And that actor is so great too. He's so great. So it's gonna suck to lose him. But the show, I mean, they're gonna have somebody else because this show just keeps on bringing it with new characters.
Oh
new
yeah,
actors.
without a doubt.
So, yeah.
Mhm.
So Brittany, how can people find us on social media?
Well, because you're already here, people, be sure to, first of all, give this podcast live stream a like. It really helps out our channel. That way others can find it, listen to it, tune in, and subscribe. We hit over 100 subscribers recently, but now the next goal, 200. So help make that happen. But you can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search The Watchers in the Basement or at Watchers Basement. And to continue to grow our audience, be sure to use the hashtag Watchers Basement when talking about the show, or if you're wanting to tag us in memes, articles, theories. We love it. Like we're here for it. Okay. We want to know what it is that you guys are into right now. And then also, if you're not into video podcasts, we are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, thanks to anchor.fm. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating. Really helps us out. Again, we want to expand this Watchers universe, help make that happen. And back to you, Justin.
Thanks, Brittany. And speaking of expanding, we expanded our roster. We added Tristan a few weeks ago, or actually, I guess the first of this season. And then we've recently added Amber, who Amber was in the chat. Maybe she's still in the chat, but she is joining you every week to break down season 5 of The Handmaid's Tale.
Yep.
So if you're into that show, definitely check out their pod. I listened to the first one. It was great. So
appreciate it.
Glad to have Amber a part of the Watchers. The more, the merrier. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, like Tristan has been a great addition to the Watchers just because of the wealth of knowledge or should I say the girth of knowledge? Justin hates it when I say that. Just with his knowledge of knowing the books, the lore, much like Frank, and you just explain things so eloquently, Tristan. Like, well done. Well done. There you go.
What they pay me for.
Yeah, but to have Amber on the pod as well to talk The Handmaid's Tale. Last year I did it as a solo pod, so it's just like me talking head who no one wants to listen to. Fine, doesn't hurt my feelings. But I'm really excited to have her with me just so we can bounce ideas off each other. And then we're also planning on doing other things that I like that the guys don't like to do. So musicals, Harry Potter, Disney. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I'm so excited to.
If Joker 2 is a musical, I'm gonna be on the pod because I'm down for the Gaga.
Well, you're gonna be on the Hamilton one, so you're cool.
we missed the boat on that. That was years ago.
Shut up.
Um,
anyway, so yeah.
So yeah, hopefully George and Frank will be back next week to
for sure.
So we'll have a full house. But,
but before we sign off, Justin, I do want to give a quick shout out to everyone who's been in the live chat. Mel, who said last week she listened to our episode on Spotify. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Also to One Kind of Beauty LDJ, thank you so much for tuning in and sharing your thoughts. Amber, of course, all of Amber's wands. That's her channel. And I think that may be it. Oh no, we had Daryl. Daryl showed up earlier. Don't know if you're still here. Appreciate you being here. And yeah, hopefully next week we'll have the rest of the watchers, and we will also have more people talking about the show.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Brittany. So for Brittany and for Tristan, this is Justin saying we'll see you next week. We talk about episode 6 of House of the Dragon. Thanks for watching.
Whoop, whoop.
Way.
Team Black.